Welcome to Wandering the Wild Mess, the podcast for anyone starting over, navigating a new chapter, or rewriting their story. I'm Heather Morgan, and if you've ever thought to yourself, what am I doing with my life? You're in the right place. Here we take the lessons in the messes, reframe the hard moments, and remember that even the wildest stories always work out. I'm so happy you're here. Now let's wander this wild mess together. The truth is, I didn't leave my marriage when things got hard. I left after years of trying to convince myself to stay. And I think that's the part that nobody talks about. So let's get into it. Welcome to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. I am so happy you're here. Y'all, we got to talk about the question I keep getting asked over and over and over again. And that is, how and when did you know it was time to get divorced? And if you've listened early in the episodes, I have sprinkled that answer throughout so many of my early vulnerable episodes. So you should definitely go back and check them out. But I wanted to just address this because I know a lot of people are in those moments and they're really wrestling with the feeling. And I can truly take myself back there, even being 3 years post-divorce, and really recalling what it felt like in those moments to make such a really life-altering decision. And the reason I want to come back with this is because I want to be honest with how hard of a decision it was. I think there's a lot going around that people are saying, glorifying divorce, and people are so, it just throwing marriages away like it doesn't matter and all of that. And that is not at all the vantage point in which I see was my marriage. I think anyone that truly loved and cared about the person that they committed to being with does not think, oh yeah, it was just so easy for me to throw that away. It's probably one of the hardest decisions that you'll ever make in your entire life. And unless you've been divorced, you just can't even fathom, because I once never been divorced and I had absolutely no idea. But I want to get into, I'm not saying, and I think people think often when someone's like, I was wrestling with it for years. It's not like I thought I was going to leave the next day and I had planned it out and it was some idea I had in my head that I was going to leave. But there was, looking back now, and hindsight's 2020, right? I see so many times in which I was like, can I do this forever? But you easily get met with a busy life and things to do, and you stop yourself and say, like, well, this is my life. This is what I'm doing. I'm married. I'm committed. This is my person, and I think that's going to always be marriage. I've obviously only been married once, but I think those are relationships. There's moments where you're like, I don't really like this, but this is, we work this through. We work this through. And there's so many of those moments that you do that. But there becomes a time where it's just draining. And I was listening to this song, Narcissist by Abriana, and I'm definitely not name calling my ex-husband as a narcissist, because I don't think that he was one. But that song, when it first came out, was close to, when we were going through the end of our marriage. And I remember our biggest point, and I never am saying this to put him down. We all have our own struggles, and I know I wasn't a perfect wife, but the challenge I had in our marriage was a lot about his drinking. That was something that was not just in our marriage, but even before. So you could say shame on me, right? Because I knew these behaviors before I said I do. And I have owned that, and I know that. But that started wearing on me over time. And I think I had gaslit myself to thinking that, as we got older, that the behavior would just naturally fall away. Like that was something we like did together a lot in our 20s. And as we got into our 30s, like that just wouldn't be the same. And I realized that you can only know how you're going to evolve, and you can't even always know that, but you definitely can't know how other people are going to evolve and what changes they're going to make and what behaviors are going to fall away. And that one did not. And it wore on me because, and I realized, it wasn't like he was like this really rude, angry drinker. It was when I was like putting myself back in that situation. What was hard is the unknowing of like, there was two big things, like not knowing what to expect of a night out together. Like if I was gonna have to like take care of him in ways because he was, a little gone, or like how it was gonna feel. Like it was a lot of like tension and anxiousness around that. But when you're living it, you don't really realize how much it's overwhelming you. You kind of just are in this like survival mode of like, that's just your life. And so you don't really realize how much it's wearing you down. And so as we're, close to, like, there was so many times looking back that I was like Googling things like, do people just stop drinking? Like, when is that gonna, like, how does that change? How do you manage that? Like, there was a lot of those things that I was quietly doing that I was never telling anyone, that I wasn't, like, I wasn't telling friends and family. I very was quiet about it. I didn't want to disrespect him. And I like, when I say this, I am not putting him on blast to say that, I don't understand that he probably was struggling with things. And I know he didn't really want to admit that, because if we had conversations, it definitely was always met with like, I didn't do that. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't do that. And so there really wasn't that level of accountability with it. And when there was, it was like, okay, well, I won't do that again. But then they would. And so it was either I don't remember, I wouldn't do that, or I'll change. And none of those really like satisfied the root of the problem, because it just continued and it just felt so heavy. And I as I've kind of like sat with this question, because I talk so much about divorce and people ask me so many questions, I really don't know that I really don't know how I finally got to the point that I just couldn't do it anymore, except for near the end. I think I might have mentioned this before. And again, it was a collection over time, but it didn't feel like it. It wasn't like I was planning this out. But there was my last birthday before the divorce, before I said that I want a divorce. And I said, okay, we were driving, we were going to meet our friends at Topgolf. I don't think I told this story before. And we had taken an Uber, and we're in the car. And I say, okay, it's my birthday. Would it be okay if you just don't take shots tonight? You can have some beer because we're out with the friends, but like, it's my birthday. Like, could I just be the one that's a little more having the time? Oh, and it kind of makes me cry, because I kind of hated that I had to do that, to be honest. But it was my reality and I put myself there, right? So he was like, of course, and I'm just like, okay, good. So we get there, and then sure enough, and it's not like I'm ever talking about it with my friends. And sure enough, I look over and there he was, my friends had ordered shots, and there he was taking a shot. And like, we made eye contact, and I think a piece of me just died right there, because I was correlating the pattern of like, it's my birthday. I made one request and we're 15 minutes into the night and it's already been disregarded. And I know some people may be thinking like, you married him, better or worse, and all of that. But it's the level of like I just don't think I can feel this discarded and disrespected for the rest of my life. And I know no one's perfect, but I think it was just the continual pattern of disappointment in what I had as my life. And it's so crazy because I knew other people that you could objectively say had much harder things happening in their marriage. And I've talked about this before. And so it was so hard for me to be like, well, these people, that husband's not even loyal, like he's cheating, or that one yells at her all the time, or that one, says rude things, or all of these other things. I was looking at everyone else's marriage and being like, well, theirs isn't great either, and it could be potentially worse than mine, so just deal with it. But I didn't want to deal with it. And like, I do think having a father, like growing up Mormon and my parents never drank or anything, like sometimes it was hard for me to wrap that around, that like the thought of even like a future with a person, ideas of family, so many things were like, I don't want it to feel like this. And I just didn't think I could carry that on. But the crazy thing isn't, and if you're in this kind of situation with any point in your life with a partner that you're with and you're thinking about leaving, like it's so much more complicated than that. It's not just like, okay, there's some like disrespect here and there. Like there is like this buildup. It's not like one moment where you suddenly knew. It's like 1,000 little moments and you're looking back and now I can see them clearly. But in that point in time, it's so hard to be like, because the idea of actually getting a divorce and actually going through with it and changing your entire life and leaving everything you've built, all of that just seems so unfathomable to digest. And I think, again, nobody talks about how bad you want it to work. Like I'm trying to convince myself, but he loves me. He's a good guy. Like this is just a problem. Like maybe he'll change one day. Like there was so many things. But I think at one point you start seeing the gap between the life that you have and the life that you really want. And you're like, I can't feel this way every day for the rest of my life. And I brought that up before. That was a big decision maker for me, was when I told you my dad died. We know this, and that was like so heartbreaking for me. And when I kept thinking about how much time I had left in my life, if I only lived as long as my dad, I did not want to celebrate those last birthdays that way ever again. Like, can you imagine you have 2 birthdays left right now? Think about this. Just think of it. Do you want the partner that you're with to be the person you're celebrating them with? How they treat you, how they act, how they are, how they make your day. And I'm not saying like marriages are all on birthdays, but they're the one day out of the year that tells you something about how that person truly feels about you. And if that day you're not considered, I don't know if the rest 364 are going to be that much different. And that's just been my experience. And I think a lot of people just go through the motions and are used to dealing with it. And that's kind of what it was. And it's weird because when I look back, like I've talked about this before, he was my best friend. I'm not here saying this man was awful. This was the worst marriage ever. I wish him nothing but the best. But at one point, you have to be honest with yourself about what you truly want. And I know they say, your word is your bond. You said, I do. You said you're going to stay. Like you didn't listen to that covenant. But what about all the words that were said and the promises that were made in the marriage? Do those not matter? Because at some point they do. Because if you don't have trust, it is going to be a rocky road the entire way. And it's already rocky even when you do have trust because life is just life and it's a wild mess and things come up and you're going to have to go through things together. So if you can't even trust them to show up for you the way that you need them to, how are you going to do the rest of your life with that? And I never really understood it. If I could have told the younger me, do I trust this man in ways of loyalty? Yes. I think I put my thoughts that trust was about faithfulness when it came to like not being like infidelity and things like that. But I didn't really realize that no, trust, can I rely on you? Are you going to show up for me? Are you going to do what you say you're going to do? Because what I felt so loudly is that actions did not ever match words time and time and time again. And I realize that even in my friendships now, I just cannot put myself in positions where I cannot rely on you at all because it feels heavier than it needs to. And it's just life has enough hurdles than to not be able to trust and depend on someone to show up when they say they will. Like it's one thing, things happen. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not like a perfect every time you have to show up, nothing in life can happen. But if the main consensus is you're not reliable and your word means nothing, oh, what are we doing? There's no safety without trust. And I think a lot of people right now want the word safety, meaning like feel safe and loved in their relationship. That's what most people and humans want as a child, right? You want to know that with your parents, you feel safe, that they love you, that they're going to do what they say, they're going to provide, take care of you, all those things. And then when you go into a relationship, you want to feel safe with that person. Like if you tell them something, they're going to keep that to themselves. If you all of these things, you want to feel like they're actually there for you and it's a partnership. But when you don't trust them, it really makes it hard for the rest of the things to fall into place. And that's where we got. I got to a point where I was like, too much trust is broken. And I don't know how to mend it back. And maybe you have the key to that. I don't know if you do. I know people get over things, but I want to tell you that not all marriages are built to last. And only the two people that are inside them know if they are. And I knew that ours was not. I didn't like that I came to that conclusion. I tried to fight it a million times. There was 101 times where I justified why I should stay when in my heart I thought, I think I should leave. And no one knew. You know, this wasn't this back and forth. This was me quietly holding this in my heart, trying to understand like, what do I do? Because I do love this man. I think he has a good heart and a good soul and he means well. And I do, but I don't know how to fix it. And I know I learned I couldn't fix another human being. And not that he was broken, but just that I couldn't build the trust back without him being trustworthy. And I can't force someone to begin to be more trustworthy with something they've been telling me for over 12 years would change. So that's really the answer to why and how I left and how I knew. I didn't know in one moment. I knew that day that I told him in our bedroom when he barged in when I was in the shower. And without even a plan or thinking about it, I said, I want a divorce. And I never went back on it once. I never wavered. I never changed my mind, and I never gave him false hope. Not because I wanted him to be in pain, but because I wanted to make it so clear and not lead him on and not try to linger with it. It would have been so much more easy for me to just play the card that because he wanted to get back together and just play like I was going to do it. So it could have been easier for me. But I never, ever wanted to do that because I knew it was a decision I had to make and I had to stick with it. And if I said that, then and then I didn't, and I wavered, then it was like I wasn't trustworthy about it either. And we had already been there. And so what I'm saying that is if you're listening, if you're facing this decision in your own, this is not me telling you to leave. I know from my own soul that someone in a marriage knows if it's just something they need to work through or if it's time to leave. Whether you're ready to leave is a whole other conversation. And I don't think you're ever going to feel ready to leave a life you have known, that you have built with someone that you thought would be your life, because it's a very, very scary reality to face, and it is not taken lightly. But I'm telling you that you know, and you can be honest with yourself. Should I leave? If you've asked yourself that, I did say this to a friend the other day, and I'll wrap it up kind of by this, but I would say, if you could, I mean, I'm not a parent, but if you could visualize you having children, or if you do have children, and if you are in a relationship that you would not prefer your partner to be or your child to be in, or you wouldn't be excited to express that about to your little you, it might not be the one. Because yes, there's going to be hard times. No, everything is not going to be perfect. Doesn't have to be. But in your heart, you'll be like, this is where I belong. And if your heart doesn't feel that way, it will never feel good. You'll always feel like, what am I doing here still? Not because you don't love them, because it just doesn't feel right for you. And that's anything in life that's not meant for you. And I think your life starts changing the moment you stop lying to yourself about what you already know. And for me, that changed everything. Every time I tried to talk myself in to giving it another chance and getting back together during the separation, like, should I? Because I just wanted my old life back. I think I said I drove to my driveway and thought, I just want my old life back. But then I suddenly flashed back to the times that I would drive home from work, and I'd pull in the driveway and he would be home, and I would walk up the stairs, and I knew as soon as he spoke if he had already drank or not. And I remember just dreading knowing if he had or not. And to come home now, when I come home and not to have that feeling on my heart, it's not been easy, but that has been amazing. Such an amazing weight lifted off to not worry like that every day. So that is my vulnerable and honest truth about how did I know that it was time. I think I was waiting for things that were never going to change for a really long time. And there wasn't just one moment, but there was the moment. And I never looked back from there. If there's someone in your life that you think needs to hear this, definitely send it to them. If it's helped you at all feel at peace or understanding more of where you're going through, I am so thankful. I would love for you to give the episode 5 stars so more people can find it. Again, I'm not advocating for divorce or trying to say that people have to be perfect to be loved and to be in a marriage. Just saying that your soul knows what can no longer be tolerated or what you no longer want to, you deserve more than. Not because you're so great, just because I think anyone does. I want you to know that you matter. And that's the whole point of how I end every episode with that. Because you do. And your choices are your own, and your life is your own, and not everyone's going to understand them, and that is okay. they were not meant to. Thank you for listening to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. You matter. Thank you for wandering the wild mess with me. If today's episode helped you see your story a little differently, I'm so glad. Make sure to share it with someone else who might need it. Keep listening for more lessons, reframes, and reminder that your path is unfolding exactly as it should. Until then, keep trusting the mess.